I want to give you my 2 cents on RFK Jr.'s new potential role in being the HHS secretary. The target is to clean up the corruption. Number 2, get back to science-based evidence. And number 3, end chronic disease, which is a pretty big goal. And I'm sure you're seeing this all over the news, all of the pushback that he's getting. You have the big food companies, big chemical companies, big pharma. They really don't like him very much. And I just want to make a comment on this one little thing that is quite interesting. It was said as a counter-argument, there is no clear evidence yet that disease is caused by processed food. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? This. It's not linked to chronic disease. What does cause disease? And their response is, we don't know. We need to do more research. As big food, big pharma, big chemicals get super wealthy, right? What is the product of healthcare? It's a healthy body. If we take the US population and compare it to the world, we're at the very bottom when it comes to health, yet we spend the most for healthcare. Over $4.1 trillion every single year. You can say RFK Jr. is a quack, anti-vaxxer. He's going to take science into the dark ages. You can pretty much just ignore that. There is many things that need to be changed. I want to give my 2 cents on what I think would make a huge difference. All right, number 1, institutional foods. And what they do is they make prepackaged food that is given to patients in nursing homes, prisons, the school systems, hospitals. This is the absolute lowest quality food on the planet. And even going into the hospital, I had 2 surgeries and I had to be in the hospital for a couple days. I mean, I just told them I wanted some protein and they're like, yeah, we don't have much protein. It's like, well, I can give you a protein bar. I interviewed a gentleman. He actually owns and runs several very unique assisted living homes. You would want to send your parents or your grandparents there if they needed that type of service because they do things completely different. And I asked him, what is the barriers of putting your system in nursing homes? And he said, there's just too much red tape. It's highly regulated as far as what they eat. And if you want to change the diet, you have to get the doctor to write a prescription. Typically, institutional foods have desserts. They have a lot of starches. It's highly processed, it's overcooked. The number 1 thing I would do is I would change the institutional foods because that's going to change the health of these people in the nursing homes, the assisted living. All these people would quickly improve of their health just by removing the refined sugars, the refined starches, and the refined oils, the seed oils. The next thing I would do, and this is really, really big, a lot of the food that we consume in the grocery store is subsidized. In other words, the taxpayers are paying for it up front or paying certain large farms to grow certain things. Corn, soy, wheat, sugar, rice. The amount that some of these companies are paid is up there around $600 billion. The largest subsidy is with corn. You can buy a cubic ton of corn for about $198. And we're talking about not sweet corn, we're talking about dent corn, which is not even edible. We also use it in the feedlots to fatten cattle. We started this whole subsidy thing right after the Depression to kind of help the farmer, but somehow it stayed in law. So now the small farmer has a heck of a time making a profit. They're lucky if they get 1 to 3% profit, and they have to work really hard at creating healthier food, and they don't get subsidies. I think one really good idea, if we could just switch what is subsidized and invest in the small farmer, pay these small farmers to grow grass-fed, grass-finished animals. I mean, that would be incredible because right now the incentive is to grow the raw material for junk food. You pay for it at the store and then you pay for it when you go to the hospital. I wanted to take a pause to ask you for a little favor. With this new administration, there's some new opportunities for healthcare practitioners to be leaders in the health reform. And I would love for you to vote for me as one of the leaders. And I am super aware of the broken system that we need to fix. Here's what you do. Click the link, which is down below. You'll have to create your own account to vote. You want to click sign up. And as soon as you have activated your account, go to the America's Health option. Click on the hot tab. Find my name, Dr. Eric Berg, and click to vote and even leave a comment down below. Thank you in advance. And let's go back to the video. The next thing I would definitely want to change is this thing called GRAS, generally recognized as safe. You would think that would be a third-party independent study to show that that ingredient was safe? And the answer is no. This is the loophole that manufacturers use to self-certify their own products. It's a bit of a conflict of interest. I can do my own studies to tell you that my ingredients are safe. A lot of things that are banned now were generally recognized as safe, like lead, DDT, mercury, stuff that they made your fillings with. Most of these junk food ingredients are GRAS. The other thing I would do is I would change how they're fortifying our food. Instead of fortifying with synthetic folic acid, which actually creates a big problem for about 30 to 40% of the population because they have a genetic issue dealing with folic acid, I would change that to folate. The type of iron they put in fortified food is disgusting. It creates so many problems. Our body does not have a good mechanism to get rid of iron, and all this iron accumulates in our body. Too much iron can actually cause dysfunctional iron that leads to anemia. The next thing, $40 billion a year of your taxes are paid to medical research for new drugs. The universities are allowed to get patents on those drugs, and then they're allowed to give exclusive rights to drug companies, and then the drug companies and the universities negotiate for a royalty between 1% and 10% of the net profits. And this license agreement is very confidential. And certain researchers within the universities also get a cut of that money. That brings up the next point. The FDA has a revolving door with big pharma. They should make it a law that if you work for the FDA or any type of regulatory business, you can never go work for a drug company or a chemical company or a big food company. 9 out of the 20 members that set up the dietary guidelines had conflicts of interest. There's a great website on this. It's called US Right to Know. Through the Freedom of Information Act, they got 80,000 pages between Coca-Cola and the dietitian organizations. And what they found out is there's a really cozy relationship between the two, between $30 to $50 million given to the dietitians from big food. The junk food industry sponsors dietitians' education, their conventions, they pay their speakers. The next thing that I would want changed is this thing called the rounding rule. If a certain ingredient is less than 0.5 grams, it can be rounded down to 0. The same thing with carbohydrates. Also sodium. If you have less than 5 milligrams of sodium, you can round it down to 0. Out of all the ingredients that I would hyper-focus on, there are 3 ingredients that make up 99% of all junk food. Refined sugars, refined starches, and refined oils, as in seed oils. I would put huge warning labels on infant formula, pet food, which is also filled with junk food, and I would force those companies to upgrade the quality of those ingredients. The worst time to give someone junk food is when they're a baby, because you're setting up that person's life for all sorts of deficiencies and health problems. And lastly, I want to talk about a very important change, sun phobia. Parallel with that, RDAs for vitamin D are just ridiculous. 600 IUs might be okay to prevent bone problems, possibly, but not to feed the other systems of the body, the immune system, the muscles, the organs. They misinterpreted the results of a whole bunch of studies, and then they used the 600 IUs, when in fact it should have been over 8,000 IUs every single day. A vitamin D deficiency puts someone at a very severe risk of virtually every disease. Pick a disease and I'll show you research on it. Cancer, autoimmune issues, your ability to sleep is dependent on vitamin D. If every person in the US took just 8,000 IUs every single day of vitamin D3, disease rates would go way down and it would not be that expensive. That's my 2 cents. Please tell me what you think should be done about this country to make a difference for healthcare.